What are the resources of the earth? Land, water, and air are the resources of the earth. Now, the outer crust of the earth is called the lithosphere. Like we can see in this picture here, the outer crust of the earth, this is the land is called the lithosphere. Then we have water covers about 75% of the earth's crust. It is also found underground, and this comprises the hydrosphere. So here we have the hydrosphere, which occupies about 75% of the earth. About 3/4 of the earth is covered with water. We have the surface water and we have water also underground. So this consists of the hydrosphere. And then we have the air that covers the whole of the earth like a blanket and is called the atmosphere. So the air which surrounds the earth is called the atmosphere. Now the atmosphere, the hydrosphere and the lithosphere, they all meet in a certain area, life supporting area, and that is called the biosphere. So living things are found where these three exist. Which three? The atmosphere, hydrosphere and the lithosphere. This life supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the lithosphere interact and make life possible is called the biosphere. So the question that can be asked from this paragraph is number 1, what is the lithosphere? And the lithosphere is the outer crust of the earth is called the lithosphere. Then the next is, what is hydrosphere? And for the hydrosphere we say the water which covers about 75% of the earth surface and also is found underground. This comprises of the hydrosphere. Then the third is, what is the atmosphere? And for what is atmosphere? The air that covers the whole of the earth like a blanket is called the atmosphere. And the last question is, what is the biosphere? I'll write it out here, fourth one. What is, or define the biosphere? Where do we find the biosphere? The life supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, the hydrosphere and the lithosphere interact and make life possible is called the biosphere. So biosphere is the life supporting zone where all these three meet together, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere and the lithosphere. Now living things constitute the biotic component of the biosphere. The air, the water and the soil form the non-living or abiotic component of the biosphere. So for the question, what is a biosphere? You will say biosphere is a life supporting zone where all the three meet. The atmosphere, lithosphere and the hydrosphere. And what are the components of the biosphere? The biosphere has got two components, the biotic components, which are the living things like plants and animals, and then we have the abiotic components. And the abiotic components like the soil, the non-living things, the soil, the water, the air, these are the abiotic components here. The biotic components, which are the living things, and then we have the abiotic components like the air, the water, the soil, form the non-living or the abiotic components. The breath of life or air. We have already talked about the composition of air in the first chapter. Air is a mixture of many gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide and water vapor. So with this we have a question, what are the components of air? Now the components of air is a mixture of many gases like nitrogen. It's a mixture of many gases like we have seen, that is nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. Then it is interesting to note that even the composition of air is a result of life on Earth. Now the oxygen that is present on the Earth, this oxygen is present on the Earth is due to the plants that are present on the Earth. It's the plants that produce the oxygen. If not for the plants, there would be no oxygen on the Earth. They produce oxygen during photosynthesis. So here's the question, the composition of air is a result of life on Earth. It's because of these plants that we have oxygen on the Earth. They produce oxygen by the process of photosynthesis. In planets such as Venus and Mars, there is no life is known to exist. The major components of the atmosphere is found to be carbon dioxide. In fact, carbon dioxide constitutes about 95 to 97% of the atmosphere on Venus and Mars. So here's a question, what is the main constituent of atmosphere of Mars and Venus? So the major constituents of atmosphere of Mars and Venus is carbon dioxide, and it has about 95 to 97% of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So there's a huge amount of carbon dioxide in Mars and Venus. And probably the Earth does not have so much of carbon dioxide because the plants take in the carbon dioxide and give out the oxygen. The eukaryotic cells and many prokaryotic cells discussed in chapter 5, they need oxygen to break down the glucose molecules and get energy for their activities. This results in the production of carbon dioxide. The process we are referring to is respiration. In respiration, what happens is glucose is burned down with the help of oxygen. It is oxidized, and as it is oxidized, energy is given out. Energy plus carbon dioxide is given out. This is how carbon dioxide is produced in the atmosphere. Another way by which carbon dioxide is produced is by the process of combustion, and also by forest fires. So we have combustion of fossil fuels which produces carbon dioxide, combustion of fossil fuels produces carbon dioxide, and burning of forest fires also produces carbon dioxide. So here we have learned now 3 ways in which carbon dioxide is produced. Respiration, where glucose is oxidized to give energy and carbon dioxide. Combustion of fossil fuel gives us carbon dioxide, and burning of forests or forest fires also produces carbon dioxide. Now, despite the increase in carbon dioxide, all these processes produce carbon dioxide, but the carbon dioxide in the air remains constant. It does not keep increasing, and the reason is here. Despite the percentage of carbon dioxide in atmosphere is a mere fraction of percent, because carbon dioxide is fixed in 2 ways. It is utilized in 2 ways. green plants convert carbon dioxide into glucose in the presence of sunlight, and that process is called photosynthesis. So in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is taken and oxygen is produced. This is the process of photosynthesis. And another process is by many marine animals use carbonates dissolved in seawater to make their shells. So these marine animals, they take the carbonates from the seawater and convert it into shells. This is from the seawater. So these are the two ways wherein carbon dioxide is used up. One is by photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is taken in, and the other way is by marine animals. They convert the carbonates which contains carbon dioxide into shells. The role of atmosphere in climate control. Now during the day, the atmosphere protects us from the excess light of the sun. Like here in this picture you can see you have the sun's rays. A part of the sun's rays reaches the earth, but a part of it also is reflected back. And hence the earth does not get very hot during the day. The atmosphere acts like a blanket or like an umbrella during the day. And during the night, the earth's heat is also trapped. It does not escape into the atmosphere. Like here, it does not escape, but it gets trapped. Like in this picture, we can see the earth, it is trapped down. It does not escape very easily out. So during the night, the earth remains warm. But during the day, it is hot, but not very hot, because the atmosphere, it acts like a blanket, it's like an umbrella. It protects us from the sun's rays, excess rays of the sun. And during the night, it acts as a blanket here. It's acting like a blanket. So during the day, it acts as an umbrella and shields us from excess heat. And during the night, it acts as a blanket. The atmosphere acts as a blanket, does not allow the heat to escape. All heat to escape. That is why when you compare the earth to the moon is quite close to us. But for the moon, during the day, the temperatures are as high as 110 degrees Celsius. It gets very hot because the sun's rays directly fall on its surface. And when it is night, the temperature becomes minus 190 degrees Celsius, minus 190, because the heat escapes into the atmosphere. There is nothing to stop this heat. It just escapes into the atmosphere, making the moon very cold at night. But that does not happen for the earth. The atmosphere acts as a blanket and protects us from this extreme temperature change. Let's read about this. We have talked about the atmosphere covering the earth like a blanket. This is important, the word blanket. We know that air is a bad conductor of heat. The atmosphere keeps the average temperature of the earth fairly steady during the day, even during the course of the whole year. The atmosphere prevents the sudden increase in the earth's temperature during the daylight hours. And during the night, it slows down the escape of heat into outer space. So that is the role of the atmosphere. Here the question is, what is the importance of the atmosphere? And you will write this answer, the importance of the atmosphere. Now think about the moon, which is the same distance from the sun that the earth is. Despite that, on the surface of the moon with no atmosphere, the temperatures range from minus 190 to 110 degrees Celsius. So the temperature range of the moon, during the day the temperature is as high as 110 degrees Celsius, that is more than boiling point of water. And during the night is minus 190 degrees Celsius, very, very cold, because it has got no atmosphere to protect it. So here's the earth, and then we have this atmosphere right round the earth. So during the day when the sun's rays come down, not all the sun's rays can reach the earth. A part of them reach, a large amount of the sun's rays are reflected back. So this keeps the earth not very hot. It keeps the earth just warm. This is happening during the day. It keeps the earth warm, prevents the excess heating of the earth. And at night, the heat from the day is not allowed to escape directly into the atmosphere. Because of the atmosphere, it is reflected back. A little bit of heat goes out, but most of it is reflected back. So during the night, it acts as a blanket. The atmosphere acts as a blanket and keeps us warm. We do not lose all the heat. The earth does not lose all its heat. And during the day, it acts as an umbrella, and it shields us from excess of heat. So this is how the atmosphere plays an important role in controlling our temperature of the earth. We'll now learn about the sea breezes and the land breezes that take place around the coastal areas. Before we learn these, we must know that air gets cooled and heated up much faster in sea than water. It gets cooled as well as heated up. It receives heat and it gives out heat much faster, while water gets cooled or heated up slower. So now during the day, we have the sun out here and it's the day. The land gets warm much quicker, and because it gets much warm, the land is warmer, the air above it is also warm, and because the air above is warm, it rises up, and there is an area of low pressure on the land. While when we go to the sea is still cool, is colder. And because it is colder, it's heavy. The cool air is heavy. And cool air being heavy, it settles down. So there is here high pressure. And the air now rushes from the low. Now it will rush from this high pressure to the low pressure. Here it rushes this way. And these are called the sea breezes. But at night, the land is cooler because it gets cold very fast. So the land is cool, and because the land is cool, the pressure above the land is high. The land is cool, the air is cool, gets cold much faster, and the pressure becomes very high. While the sea is still warmer because the sea takes longer to cool down. So it's still warmer, the air is warm, the warm air rises up, so there is low pressure. And now air will move from the high pressure to the low pressure. So these are called the sea breezes. Not the sea is coming from the land, so these are called the land breezes. Let's go over it again. Let's learn what is sea breeze. Sea breeze takes place during the day. Here you have the sun out here. So during the day we see that the land gets, this is land, it gets hot much faster. So the first point is land, it gets hot faster. So the air also gets hot faster. The air above it gets hot faster. Now hot air rises up. Now when hot air rises up, here you can see the hot air rising up, it creates low pressure. Now when we go to the sea, the water is still cold. Water heats up slowly. So during the day it is still cold, the water is still cold. So the air above also is cool. And cool air settles down, it does not rise up. So you can see that cool air remains down, it's heavy. Cool air is heavy. So there is high pressure above the sea. And when there is a difference in pressure, the air now moves from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. So it moves here. And these are called sea breezes. Because they come from the sea, so these are sea breezes and they come during the day. Now what happens at night? At night, the land, there is no heating, the land cools and it cools much faster than the water. So the air above is also cool, and cool air settles down. It's heavy. Cool air is heavy and it settles down. So see here, you can see it settles down, and this causes a high pressure on the land because the air is settling down. Whereas in the sea, the water is still warm. During the day it has got warm, and the water is still warm, and the water takes time to cool down. It cools slowly, so it is still warm. And the air also is warm. Warm air rises up. And because warm air rises up, there is low pressure over the sea. So over the sea there is low pressure, while over the land there is high pressure. So there is a difference in pressure. And because of this difference in pressure, air now moves from high pressure to low pressure, from the land to the sea. And these are called land breezes, and they blow only during the night. So we just read this a little bit. Now, in a similar manner, when air is heated by radiation from the heated land of water, it rises. So remember, warm air always rises. But since land gets heated faster than water, the air above the land would also be heated faster than the air over the water bodies. So, if we look at the situation in coastal regions during the day, the air above the land gets heated faster and starts rising. As this air rises, a region of low pressure is created and the air above the sea comes into this area of low pressure. The movement of the air from one region to another creates winds. During the day, the direction of the wind would be from sea to land. At night, both the land and the sea start to cool. Since the water cools down slower than the land, the air above the water would be warmer than the air above the land. And hence, during the night, we'll have breezes from the land to the sea. We can now answer the question, explain how land breezes are formed, and this is the answer for land breezes. This is not land breezes, this is the answer for sea breezes. So here this is for the sea breezes. So this is from sea to the land. So this is the answer for sea breeze. And then for the land breeze, here we have the answer for the land breeze. You can go up to the diagrams and explain it accordingly. On the basis of the above discussion, what can you say about the appearance of areas of low pressure and high pressure in coastal areas at night? It's because of this difference in pressure do we get the winds. The direction in which wind would blow at night in coastal areas. So we already saw at night the wind blows from land to sea. This happens at night. And during the day, from sea to land. This is during the day. The next is name the factors that affect the wind. So we'll just mark these points. The other factors that affect the wind is the rotation of the earth and the presence of mountain ranges in the paths of the wind are a couple of these factors that affect the wind. We'll now learn how clouds are formed. It all starts in the ocean or in other water bodies where the water first evaporates. This evaporated water vapor then rises up into the air. As it rises up in the air, here it is cool. And because it is cold, the water vapor now condenses into drops of water. As time passes, these drops of water gets larger and larger because more and more water vapor collects around them. In fact, you must remember there are these dust particles, and this water will collect or will form these droplets around these dust particles. So all these droplets which are formed here are around dust particles. Now, as they grow larger, very large, they can no longer remain floating in the air, and then they come down as rain. So we'll now read how clouds are formed, or how do we get rain. When water bodies are heated during the day, a large amount of water evaporates and goes into the air. Some amount of the water also gets into the atmosphere because of various biological activities like respiration and other activities. This air also gets heated. The hot air rises up, carrying the water vapor with it. As the air rises, it expands and cools. This cooling causes the water vapor in the air to condense in the form of tiny droplets. This condensation of water is facilitated by some particles could act as nucleus of these drops to form around. Normally, dust and other suspended particles in the air perform these functions. Once the water droplets are formed, they grow bigger by condensation of these water droplets. When the drops have grown big enough, they fall down in the form of rain. Now remember, water does not form only in the form of rain, it also forms in the form of snow, sleet or hail. These are other forms of precipitation of water. So here the different precipitations of water could be rain. Then we have sleet. This is hail and snow. In the large parts of India, rain mostly are brought by the southwest winds. So the winds that bring rain to India are the south, west or the northeast monsoon winds. So at this point we need to know which are the winds that bring rain to India. We have the southwest. These are the winds that come in this direction from the southwest. And somewhere in November we have the northeastern winds that bring rain to India. So the northeastern winds come in this direction. They come in another season, somewhere in November, December. So these are the northeast winds that bring the monsoons to India, and the southwest. The southwest brings the rain in the month of June.